my name is Sinbad Stardust, and today we're going to go over the basics of character design in the VTubing sphere. So essentially, design is key, and there are a lot of misconceptions about what actually makes a good or memorable design. People have this thought path that complicated equals good and simple equals bad, which is just simply not the case. Lately on Twitter, or X, you might have seen these silhouette challenges where people will post out a blackened out image of their design and people will comment on what is most memorable or what stands out in the design. Now I will touch on shape motifs and colour briefly later on, but firstly let's get into silhouettes. To start this off, we're going to go through a few different types of silhouettes, starting with simple ones. Keep track of your score here and let me know in the comments what you got. Let's start with these two. Were you right? Next, let's look at another set of slightly more complex designs. Still easy, right? Let's try one more set. Now I'm willing to bet that you got most of those, if not all of them, correct. But why? It's because they're successful in a range of ways. One of these, which is really evident in the silhouette, is the shape language, or what we call the shape motifs. As a small side note here, some designs are really successful because they are asymmetrical. Your eyes tend to be more drawn to things that aren't symmetrical because you'd notice it more because it's out of place. This isn't always the rule, it's just a case-by-case design note. So if you're finding that your designs are looking a little bit cookie cutter, try adding a little bit asymmetry. That might be what it's kind of missing. Now look at these shapes. Each are going to tell their own story. Characters made up primarily of the square shape might give off a more sturdy look, more reliable. The circle here gives off a more softer look, a happier look, more curvy. And triangle is a little bit pointy and dangerous and edgy. Using these shapes in our designs can help tell the story of the character that we're trying to put across. It makes them memorable. Mixing too many shapes can be a little bit confusing at a base level, so just try and commit to a shape when you pick it, depending on what story you're trying to tell. Here are a few examples of what I'm talking about. We have the sturdy square, the curvy circle, and the pointy triangle. Aside from shapes and silhouettes, we have colour. If your colour palette is confusing, the design might be too. This does work in some instances, but for a majority, sticking to a colour palette can help keep your design recognisable and memorable. As an example of this, you might have seen these colour bars, if you've been exposed to the references at least. You know who these are, right? And what about these three? Exactly. So a good colour palette can also have big impact as well. Overall, a successful design is one that could be ported to any style or medium and can be recognised throughout. So this means that to have a good design, it doesn't always have to be complicated. It doesn't automatically mean it's better. Sometimes simple is just as good. It boils down to these three things. Is your silhouette readable? Does your colour palette make sense? Does your character tell a story about themselves? Ultimately, your design is yours, but keeping all this in the back of your head for where it's applicable will certainly help in future. Now let's put what we have learned today into practice. Now during this part of the process, I'm trying to take care on the body shape that I'm using. I wanted quite a slim shape here that I can manipulate more into a triangular, so broad shoulders down to a small waist and keeping narrow hips as well. Since I was going for a more triangular shape motif here, I decided to go for the very long pointy ears, and you can see even as I do the hair, I'm making sure to keep those triangle shapes throughout. Now I wanted to do a bit of asymmetry here, so I had the wraparound dress with the big triangular shapes again, just to keep that all cohesive. More asymmetry here, making sure once again to keep those nice triangular shapes and keep in mind the end silhouette. Now here you can see the silhouette. I tried to keep that triangle in mind. Here we're trying to pick out a couple of colours. I went for a darker skin tone here so that I could do a very high contrast dress. Having that high contrast against the darker tones are going to help bring out more of that triangular shape in the dress, which is complementary to the overall shape of the character that we've designed. And we did it! Here is what the final design ended up being versus the silhouette, so we can see exactly how those shapes played together. Now I'm just going to go a little bit over the colour and how to get a bit of colour harmony even on simple palettes. So here I'm just picking out 3 random colours. I will duplicate this to show the difference between how to get them to harmonise with each other. What I do here is I select the darkest colour out of the 3, make a new layer and then put it over the colours, make that a screen layer and drop the opacity down to about 10 or 15% and see how much better those colours go together now. Whew, and now we're done. I hope this was somewhat helpful to get around to doing your own designs and thinking more critically about certain design elements. Good luck out there.